Hey there! We're going to take a look today at Monarda bradburiana and see what it looks like in every season of the year. And now this is an established plant, but you are going to see a couple different years of the established plant. And so here on the screen are some common names. I usually call it Bradbury's Monarda, and I'll show you a picture of that guy Bradbury at the end of this video. So here's some info about Monarda bradburiana, so we can be sure that we're talking about the same plant and the same Monarda. So Monarda bradburiana gets about 1 to 2 feet tall, and the width can be about 2 to 3 feet. So this is a really good plant for your front yard as far as native plants go, because it's very tame. It has a nice mounded look. It never looks out of control. And so, for people who are concerned about that, Monarda bradburiana is a really good pick. It's also a very pretty flower. And so the soil type and the habitat type that it likes is pretty diverse, which helps new native plant growers. And then also that endangered status. Overall in North America, secure. Critically imperiled, though, in Illinois, Kansas, and Texas. So come on, guys. Plant some of this. Okay. So this site here is site number 1, and that is the site you're going to be looking at most today. So it is full sun, and I have written loam/clay because mostly my yard is clay, but the previous homeowners really put a lot of loam on top. So this Monarda bradburiana has about 4 inches of loam, and then underneath that is clay. The second site you'll see sometimes is a partial sun site, totally loam. I sort of feel like the previous homeowners just excavated out all the clay and just loamed it up in there. And then the third site you'll only see a little bit. That is a full sun site, totally clay. I think the previous homeowners didn't really care about that location, so they just left it. So that is just clay. And I have written mistreated because it is right next to the driveway, so it gets stepped on. It gets rolled over by cars sometimes. Sometimes it gets the salt from the streets in the wintertime. So site 3 is a mistreated site. Okay, so Monarda bradburiana. When does this baby come up? So for me, it will be in late winter, but late winter. I have written February, but this is the way end of February. And so this is that first site, and you can see here all the Monarda bradburiana stalks and seed heads and leaf litter from last year, because I just leave it. We'll talk about that later. But as I move it all out of the way, here they are coming up. And so they're this purplishy reddish color, right? They're a little spindly, leggy. I think sometimes they're trying to get over the leaf litter before they start really opening up their leaves. Do you know what I mean? And at this site, I believe I have 2 plants that are next to each other. So the original, it looks like one big patch. That is my original Monarda bradburiana plant. And then this other one that I think I'm showing you right now, a little bit to the side. To the casual observer, it will all look like one plant. But I know that other one is a separate plant entirely. So that means when the original plant will one day die, I'll still have this little offspring of it to take over. So that's cool. And so Monarda bradburiana does have a little bit of rhizome propagation. So a rhizome, I'll give you a link. I have a video on rhizomes and what they are and how that works. But it's basically a horizontal stem that's underground. So it's like a stem on a plant, but it's underground instead of on top of ground. And so they send those out a little bit, and then they come up. And so you can end up with what looks like a patch of plants, plural, but it's actually just one plant, and it has just sent out these rhizomes. So all of these guys coming up, all one plant, all the original mother plant, we'll call her, in this location. So it's all the same plant. Now, some plants spread very aggressively by rhizomes. That is not Monarda bradburiana. Bradbury's Monarda is not aggressive at all. It is so easy to control, which makes it really nice for a display plant in the front of your home. Okay, so this now is also late winter, late February, same site, but this is from a different year, the year before what you just saw. So they're coming up about the same time. and they look about the same, but the patch is just a little bit smaller. So that width was like 2 to 3 feet. And so this year that you're looking at right now, it was maybe 2 feet wide. And currently, the previous video you saw, it's gotten to be like 3 feet wide. And so at the tops of them, you can see the little, where they're going to start having like nice leaves, right? I think all of the Monardas, when they come up, they look an awful lot like this. So if I just saw these come up, I might be able to tell you it's Bradbury's Monarda, but I might also only be able to tell you that it's just a Monarda. Oh, look, that stalk is standing up still from last year. That's cool. And that's the other smaller plant to the side. So 2 separate plants here. And so you could see my little finger there. And so I have regular sized lady hands. And so some of these are maybe an inch tall. Most of them are shorter than that yet. So those other green things there is wild strawberry and some dandelions. Oh, look at that little guy. Okay, we've gone to early spring, very early March now, less than a week from the last video. And you can see now in just a few days that they have gotten taller. We're, an inch to maybe 2 inches in some places here. And then on the top, they're not all that purplish reddish anymore. Some of them are starting to get a little green on the top, right? And so you can see the stalks from the previous year there still. Maybe I'll even say it right now. Pollinators, insects, bees, they use leaf litter and old stalks for a lot of stuff. So they use them for protection from predators. They can overwinter underneath a whole lot of leaves. Some of them use the stalks to overwinter. Some bees use hollow stalks to make little nests. So we think of like the beehives, like in Berenstain Bears or something, but most bees don't make beehives like that. Most of them are ground bees. They make little nests in the ground. And then there's a whole bunch that make little nests in hollowed stalks. And so if you leave your stalks up, bees can use these and insects can use these. And I don't know enough about insects to say all the ways they can use them, but I don't need to buy like a bee hotel or anything because I leave all my stalks up. So I know they can use those. Okay, so this is still early spring, early March. This is site 2. So exact same day as the last video. This is just that partial sun site with loam. And so these ones are not up as much as the last ones. And so I don't know if it's the loam versus loam clay or the sun versus partial sun. But if I was to guess, I find my Monarda bradburiana mostly comes up sooner in the full sun site, comes up just a tick later in partial sun. So now we are in the middle of March. So early spring, we're about a week and a half or so from the last video. And now you're really starting to get a better feel for what these leaves are going to look like. And if you're walking by casually, you might notice them now because you can still see the purplish reddish color, but the green is starting to pop in now on some of these, right? Now, if someone on the street just came up to me and said, "What color leaves are Bradbury's Monarda?" Because people ask that on the street all the time. And I would say purplish red. The truth is, though, it's because I'm so familiar with the leaves when they come up and when they start to change color in the autumn that my brain just sort of deletes that they do actually turn green. I think most people would say that Bradbury's Monarda has green leaves. As you can see, they're starting to turn. But in my mind, it's just always stuck that they're purplish reddish. But like they're not. I would fail that street quiz. But you can also start to see what's happening here is that vein down the middle is that purplish reddish color, and that central vein will stay that color. So maybe I'm not like completely bonkers, right? All right, so just a couple days later, still mid-March, same year, still site 1, same location. I had just noticed that in these just like 3 days, they had gotten a lot more green. Look at that. I mean, those are really, they've greened up. Nail polish change. It's my other St. Patrick's Day polish. Oh, gosh. And so I flipped over the leaf there, and you can see that under the leaf, when they're still young or in springtime, under the leaf will stay that purplish reddish for a little while. And I do find it interesting that one plant, and it's one plant with just all these different rhizomes coming up, like they don't all look exactly the same coming up, even though it's all one plant. And so I even think, within this 2-foot diameter here, diameter. Within this 2-foot diameter, there is still microenvironments in the soil. Like this little spot gets a little bit more sun than this one. This soil is a little more moist than this soil. This side is closer to this plant. That side is closer to that other plant. And so different things are happening under the ground. Do you know what I mean? Okay, this is site 3. Full sun, all clay, mistreated. So I'm showing you the stalks from last year, and those are still there. And then here we go. You can see them coming up. So mid-March still, early spring still, same day as the last video. They're just not coming up at all as much. And this is full sun. So is it the clay that's the problem? Is it the wild mistreatment of this site that's the problem? Just been run over by a van one too many times. Okay, site 2, partial sun. Here they are. This video skips a little bit. I apologize. But site 2, partial sun, early spring. This actually is St. Patrick's Day that this video was taken. And in this partial sun site, they're not as far along as the site 1, the full sun, not mistreated site. Hard to see, though, if you're just walking by, right? Okay, so now we're getting to the end of March. So still early spring, but end of March now. Site 1, the full sun site again. And it feels like all these little fellas are now having green leaves, multiple leaves. They're mostly still the reddish purple on the bottom of the leaves. But you're seeing green on all of them, right? And they all have multiple leaves. They're certainly all photosynthesizing and doing some good stuff. And these would maybe be, I'm going to say 1 to 3 inches tall. Now there's a couple oddballs. That one I'm holding there. I mean, that might be like 5 inches tall already, but most of them are anywhere from maybe 1 to 3 inches tall at this point. And so on the right, here you can even see on the right is one plant and on the left is the other one. But as they grow and get big, a little bit later when they're blooming, they all look like one plant. So this is April now, mid-spring. It's April 7th I have. And so, okay, like you definitely would see these if you're walking by. There's no missing them now. Lots of green leaves. You could see that central vein is still the purplish reddish color. St. Patrick's Day nail polish, gone. But you can see where I get this, like, the leaves are reddish purple, because those were still a little reddish purple, right? Okay, mid-April now. We're about a week from the last video. Yeah. Still the site 1. And see here, a lot of that purplish reddish color, gone. And even, see that? I'm pointing that out. That looks to me like the beginning of a bud. Like it's already thinking that maybe it wants to do some flowers now. And these are all, taller than my hand. I mean, they got to be half a foot, 10 inches tall in the middle. Now, a little bit down there are some dandelion greens, but mostly this is our Bradbury's Monarda. And they're making that nice mounded shape now. You can see that. End of April now, mid-spring. And the way that, okay, so that's definitely a bud in there. It looks like leaves in the middle there, that light green, but that is a bud. So that is where our flower head is going to be. The green has gotten darker. Central vein, still purplish reddish. And so you see how these are flopped a little bit? Without remembering, because I didn't write it down, it looks a little bit like there's a little bit of a drought or just not enough rain at that time. they'll get a little droopy, but they'll recover. This will not be a problem. And so this one, that bud is getting pushed up, and it's even maybe starting to open a little at the top there. So Bradbury's Monarda you see that little bud, and it's kind of down there in the leaves, and then it gets pushed up higher and higher, and then it starts to open at the top, like you can kind of see that, right? Some flower buds on some plants are so pretty and obvious. I don't think Monarda bradburiana has obvious flower buds. They really blend right in my humble but always accurate opinion. It's a joke. Little joke. And so this is not the most recent year, so that patch has gotten bigger. Okay, so this is late spring, May 1st, early May. Still that site one. And you can really see now the buds on these. Although somebody casually passing by legitimately probably would not see these buds. And so I don't usually, after they're established, I don't water my plants anymore. So, if there is a drought happening, they will droop a little, and that is okay with me. And so on this smaller second plant on the right, you can see the buds, but you can also see they're starting to open here. And then you see inside all of those little pokey whitish dot things. Each one of those is actually going to be an individual flower. So we call the whole flower head here, we call that whole thing like one flower, but it's not. It's actually made up of lots of flowers in there. So it's really down in there, there's like little green tubes. And then at the top of each of those green tubes, it looks sort of pokey and whitish. And out of each of those emerges the petals of individual flowers. And so here you can see, here we go. We got some already blooming. And so they start in the middle, as you can see, in the middle on the top, and they sort of make a wreath of flowers around the top. I read that somewhere, a wreath. And then these ones will start to make their seeds, and the petals will fall away, and then the wreath will get bigger around this flower head ball as more bloom. So all of those little tubey things don't bloom at the same time. Okay. This is 3 days later. 3 days later. Oh, look at that. Oh my gosh, it's so lovely. So they say the flowers are a pinkish purple. I'll agree with that. And that they have dark purple or dark pink little dots on that like lower petal. And that seems about right. This is it. It's happening. And do my eyes deceive me, or do these look a little perked up? They might have gotten some rain. And then I can see on some of the leaves in there, they look like, just as if you look in the background, I see a couple leaves that look like they've been munched on by some insects. And that's good news. We want to support caterpillars because they make moths and butterflies, and we love those. So if you want to support your pollinators, you have to accept your leaves are going to get munched on a little bit, and it's actually kind of a pretty thing. If they're not munched on, it just doesn't look right to me. So this is not quite mid-May, late spring. Site one still. Oh, it's so beautiful. Oh, okay. Pause. So this is a research paper from 2024. Rachel Smith, she was working on her master's degree at the University of Georgia. And one of the papers, or she published some papers on different Monarda species and had some interesting results. But I took this picture from her paper, and the lower left corner, I just wanted to show you that Monarda flower. So the lower left corner there, that is an individual flower. And then the upper left corner, that's like many flowers. What we would call one like flower head is actually many flowers, right? And then in the lower left there, so it says corolla length with that arrow. So that's like the tubular part of the flower. And then there's a little spot where the petal like goes down, and then there's a spot where the petal goes up. And that spot where the petal goes up, those stamen come out of there, and that is where the pollen is. And then down that tube on the left is where the nectar is. So Bradbury's Monarda makes both pollen and nectar. The long-tongued bees can get all the way down in that flower tube to get the nectar, like the bumblebees can do that. But short-tongued bees can't get all the way in there, but they do still collect the pollen that is on the stamen of that top part of the petal. Do you know what I mean? And I guess the nectar in Bradbury's Monarda is, like, there's a lot of it. I forget the word. Quantitatively, there's a lot. And so it's pretty great for pollinators. Okay, so back to real time. And so you can see on some of these now, if you look at that top part of the petal that like goes up and then down, and you can see some like pokey stuff coming out of there. So those are going to be your little stamen that have the pollen on it. So as that bumblebee goes in to get that nectar out of the tube, the bumblebee is likely to hit and knock those stamen and get some of that pollen on their backs and on them. And then when they go to the next Bradbury's Monarda, they can pollinate it. I think those dots on the bottom little petal, I think those spots, I would say that they're dark pink, magenta maybe. What do you think? In the back there, those are knockout roses, and I hate them, and we are going to get rid of that bush. Okay, mid-May, same plant, same year, still late spring. And so you can see in the middle now, the middle little wreath of all of these, those petals have sort of withered because they've already been pollinated or not. And so they're either making seeds or not. And then the wreath of flowers has sort of moved down. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? But that is a pretty nice patch of a plant, right? It's very pleasing shape. Okay, so this is also mid-May, and this is an earlier year yet. So you have 3 different years of footage here. And this is site 2, so the partial sun site. Excuse me. You can see that it has rained recently. You can see some holes in these leaves where insects have been having lunch, which is awesome. Carry on, insects. And then you can see in this year, in this partial sun location, a lot of these are still buds, and they haven't opened yet. And so that can be due to the sun being partial instead of full. So I think the partial sun ones are usually a little bit behind. But also, year to year, the weather is variable, right? There's some variety in year to year. And so when Bradbury's Monarda will make buds and bloom and all of that can be off by even a couple weeks. And, our climate is changing. That is true. We can argue about whether humans are pushing that or not, but you cannot argue that climate change is in fact real. And so that does make it more variable when these plants are going to come up, when they're going to bud, when they're going to bloom. I do notice a variety from year to year based on climate as well. And so this is a good example of, these leaves are green. But that vein is the purplish red always. And the bottom of the leaves are green. And as you look close up, you can see they're a little bit hairy. You see that? And the stem is a little bit hairy. It's not like super, super fuzzy, but it's a little hairy. And so that is also Bradbury's Monarda. And so each of these plants, it's a little patch of a plant, and each one is, although there's many stalks coming up from the ground, it is all one proper plant. So this little guy that we just passed by took a lot longer to become a mature plant. It was like a year behind everyone else. I don't know why, but still just one plant. Okay, and so, excuse me, mid-May here, late spring, site 1. So this is kind of the fully bloomed, beautiful time, right? And you saw that bumblebee, and if you kind of look close, you can see something else is like flitting around in there. There's other smaller bees that flit around in there too. This is still mid-May, site 3, so this is the mistreated site. And you can see okay, the patch isn't as big and robust. It's gotten a little bigger since this video was taken, but not a whole lot. So it'll never be quite as happy, if you will, as a better treated site. But these do okay. getting knocked by people and cars passing by, a little bit of salt from the road. There's a lot of children in the neighborhood who don't always care about plants and just sort of like you give a boy a stick and they just whack at things, right? I mean, okay, fine, not all boys, but like they'll just whack at your plants. So, but Bradbury's Monarda does okay. Okay, so this is site 1. Wait, is that true? Have I labeled this right? Uh-huh. It is site 1. And then here's site 3. So blooming, you could see the wreath of flowers is down by the bottom, so we're getting to the end of the bloom period. And of course, you can see this bumblebee going crazy. So the bumblebee is trying to get all the way into that tube for that sweet, sweet nectar, and is undoubtedly getting some pollen on it too, to pollinate other Bradbury's Monarda, which is good. Okay, and here's site 2. So trying to follow a bee, which is what I try to do because they're really fun to watch. It's very hard to do it on camera. I like this one because you can really see how this bee, from flower to flower to flower to flower, it goes around in a circle. And I appreciate that. It's very orderly. And bees don't have a lot of extra stored energy, so they really need to get as much nectar as they can from each plant before they go to the next one. If they don't get nectar, which sometimes with non-native plants, they don't have the right amount of nectar or any nectar at all, bees can actually die going from one flower to the next because they don't have enough energy, which is crazy, right? So we're getting towards the end of May now, and this is site 1, and you can see here that a lot of the flower petals and the flowering is done all together. And that reddish purple vein in the middle of the leaves, becoming mostly green now, isn't it? So that coloring on the leaves is still changing. And so, yeah, this is really the getting to the end of the bloom period. So late spring, early summer. Site 2, here there is a small bee that I try to follow, not very well. And so this site 2, look, this one is fully bloomed and lovely. But some other ones are finishing. This is a different year from the last video. So again, you get variability between years. And so this small bee is unlikely to have a long tongue and actually get to the nectar down that tube, but it will be able to get pollen. And now when you see these little bees, sometimes you're like, is that just a fly? Often it is not. It is actually a bee. There's actually like an enormous number of little tiny bees. And sometimes bees look like flies and flies look like bees. Unless you're a bee person, it can be really hard to tell. Okay, so that little one I'm showing you, I get on occasion a few like late little bloomers who pop up, and it always looks a little funny because it's like 3 or 4 little flowers coming out of the top. Yeah, and so it always looks a little bit funny. So I get that sometimes. And so at this time, at this site, I had them all lined up in a row in the front of this garden bed, but that does change. These do all get dug up, and I change how they are. Okay, so look at here. You see all this powderiness on the leaves. It looks a little gunky down there, and the leaves at the bottom are all gone. So in times of drought or stress, sometimes Bradbury's Monarda will lose its lower leaves, and it does make it more open to picking up powdery mildew. Okay, so this is a much earlier year. This is that site 1. This is how it started. It was a patch, maybe just 8 inches across, right? Way end of May here. And so anyways, yeah, if Bradbury's Monarda isn't super happy, it can lose those lower leaves, and that can open it up also to mildew infection. But here's the thing. You don't need to spray them, and you don't need to freak out. It's fine. It doesn't kill the plant. It doesn't hurt the plant. Introducing chemicals, it just sticks around with the plant. It ends up killing pollinators and insects. Or if it doesn't, it makes them infertile, or it makes their babies infertile. Like, you don't need to spray these plants. They're fine. Even those ones where you looked and you're like, oh, it's a little gunky down there. I can see I think it's powdery mildew, that whitish fungus, like, don't worry about it. It's okay. And if they lose their lower leaves, it's fine. No one's looking down there anyways. Everyone's looking at the beautiful blooms, right? So be cool. Okay, last day of May, site 2. Here's this little guy going around this flower in an orderly fashion. Okay, so now we're in early summer, June, and this is site 2, different year. And so site 2 this year, they had all flopped over, which hasn't happened to me since this particular year. Bradbury's Monarda doesn't usually flop over, but they did. So a lot of them leaning against the ground, they get that powdery mildew because it comes from the soil, right? So a lot of these flopped over. They also bloomed later this year. And if you notice, like, what is that, grass? It is grass. We did not do a good job, like, putting a division line between the garden bed and the grass. And then I was like, don't mow the lawn too close to my flowers. And so you just ended up with this sort of chaotic grass, Bradbury's Monarda situation. It has since been remedied, but, learn as we go. Okay, so about a week later, still early summer, early-ish June, site 2. And so it's the same pattern as you had seen on the other flowers. These ones in a different year are just a little bit behind. But you can see that wreath of flowers starts in the top in the middle and then moves down. And so now it looks like a little bald man, right? Where the top doesn't have anything and around the edge are the flowers. And this is my little one that was behind everybody else. And so sometimes this happens. You'll read like, oh, in 2 years you'll get flowering and stuff. But for that one, year 2, it's still pretty small and not happy. And that happens sometimes. What if right underneath it is like a giant rock and all the rest of these don't have a giant rock? Or, I don't know what is all happening under the ground to that particular one that made it so small and takes so much longer for that one to become robust and lovely. I don't know. Yeah, so again, in that year that you were just seeing, they don't look the best, but that's okay. In subsequent years, they look better. Mid-June, we're back to site 1, the main one patch of plant. These are all post-bloom, so the flower petals are gone. And so what's happening down in there now are the ones that have been pollinated are starting to make their seeds. And most of the petals have fallen off, but on some of these you can see little brownish, spindly, dried up things, and that is some of the flower petals still falling off. And you can see that main plant there, and then on the right is a slightly smaller plant. Okay, so it looks like it's raining here, but it's not. That is a sprinkler. And I told you I don't water my plants when they're established, and that is true. This sprinkler is for a plant really close that I am getting established. Okay, so these seed heads, they're starting to get dried out. In a minute, I'm going to give you a very rare audio clip, like real time, from when I was actually out there looking at the plant. Get ready for this audio clip on what these sound like in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so that is, so you can hear that they're really dried out at that point, right? And so down in there, it is making seeds. Now, these seeds are kind of wind dispersed. Sometimes they just sort of fall out, or things walk by, or children with sticks whack it, and seeds will fly, but also wind will get them too. And so this is that site 1 in the earliest year that I have footage for. And so you can see it's not, it's only like a foot in width. But we're still, we still have the same seed heads now that are drying out. And see that, see some of these, this is what I'm saying. There's always a couple that make these late blooms, and like all of these won't bloom. It'll just be like a couple. It's funny. It's cute. I don't know. Okay, this is site 2, that same earlier year, and also where they had flopped over quite a lot. But still, seed head, seed pod, you know what that sounds like now. And some of those seeds might actually be coming out as I am running my hand over it. And now you can also see the leaves here are starting to go from that dark green. They became maybe a little bit of a lighter green again. And now they're turning a more fall time color, even though we are still in midsummer, but they do start to change color. And so here we are in early September, early fall. And you can really see these leaves are changing color now. And those seed heads, they're not gonna, to our eyes, change a lot at this point. And so the seeds will disperse again by wind or by people running their hand over them. The reddish purple line in the middle of these leaves is totally gone. And yeah, and then down here is that second plant that you and I know is a totally separate second plant. So nowadays, I will come along this edge with a weed whacker. I know how to use those now. And I will zip along the edge to get all that grass along the edge and to make like a little divoty line to really make a nice distinct line between the Bradbury's Monarda and the grass. It actually looks kind of nice. Still a different year, but around the same timing, early September, early fall. Some blades of grass have gotten very long and are coming through. And so I'm trying to show you here, all of these stalks are coming from the same like 8 inches of ground under here. And the stalks are starting to change color just a little bit as well. Get to like more of a lighter brown as we start getting into fall time. Okay, so we're very much mid-September now, still early fall. Not a lot of change. And you know, here at the end of, okay, so those are changing a little bit to our fall time colors. So that's kind of pretty. And these flower heads, or I guess now seed heads, they're kind of neat to look at, right? And so some of these will fall over in the fall time. Some of them will not. So I noticed with all my different Bradbury's Monarda plants, some of them, not yet, but as fall, you can see they're starting to lop over a little bit. Some of them will totally fall over in fall time, and some just stay up all winter. So we're at mid-fall now, October. Excuse me. And so let's see here. Different year, site number 2. This is an earlier year. And on some of these, you can see a little bit of that powdery mildew. But you can see the seed heads on top of all of them. Now we're getting back to reddish purple leaves with some orange in there. We're getting our fall colors. You can see the leaves are a little bit hairy. The stems are getting more and more brown. And everything is starting to get a little crispy and dry out a little bit. So the seeds inside of here, I don't think I have any images where I actually just show you the seeds in my hands. But they are called nutlets. And I love when things are called nutlets. So that one has a lot of powdery mildew, that particular one. The rest of these over here is not so bad. And I think that's the only year that any of my Bradbury's Monarda got that powdery mildew. I have a different Monarda that gets that mildew every year. But this particular Monarda, Bradbury's Monarda, almost never. And so if yours flops over and you're like, no, I can't have that, you can buy little stakes, or sometimes from around the yard I take sticks, and I use twisty ties from like loaves of bread, and I'll twist tie them to a stake, and that'll hold them up. I mean, I usually let them flop over, but you know, if that's of concern to you, you can hold them up a little bit. So now we are in late fall or November. Okay, look at this, right? So this is mid-November. So the one plant on the right, you can still see some green leaves, but underneath, so it's falling over a little bit, you can see the lighter green leaves. These ones are still standing up a bit, right? But all those leaves are changing. Some of them are becoming almost blackish. There's reddish, orangish. You know, your general fall time leaf scene. So now we're jumping forward to early winter. We're in December now. You can see the Christmas lights are already up. And so some of these still are retaining some of their lightish green yellow. These ones here, although they're brown, they aren't totally crispy. And so some photosynthesis can still be going on here. They can still be getting a little bit of energy from the sun. Most of them are brown. Mostly the Bradbury's Monarda is dormant, but not entirely. So this is maybe 2 weeks later, a little bit later in December. And it's like, okay, in that last 2 weeks, we've lost our leaves now. All the ones that were sort of hangers on, well, they're gone. Any leaves that are left are definitely the crispy brown. You could see a lot of them have fallen to the ground. The stalks are still here, but all those ones on the ground, those can have caterpillar eggs, insect eggs on them. Underneath can be insects that are overwintering, taking shelter, hiding from predators. So like leave the leaves, it's cool. And as I work around the Christmas lights, like this big tufty thing, yeah, like look at all that protection underneath there. That's like a happy home for a whole lot of wonderful little insects for the winter, right? And some of those leaves I can see are still a little green, but mostly we're without leaves and we're brown now. Okay, so this is midwinter, January. Snow. So in this particular video, like where is the Bradbury's Monarda? I don't know. It's in there. So that's site 2. It's changed a little bit since you first saw it. I made it bigger. So this is site 1 again, that exact same day. There's our Bradbury's Monarda. There's our site 1. You can see some of those seed heads popping up, snow falling on them. I think that looks nice. I think it looks cool. This is site 3, that mistreated one by the driveway. Oh, the Bradbury's Monarda is somewhere in there. Totally under the snow, though. Okay, this is site 2. This is a different year. Same day, different year. So still snow on the ground, but not quite as deep. And in this different year, this Bradbury's Monarda patch is a little bit smaller, but you can still see that it is upright. You can see the stalks are still up. There's still some brown leaves here. So not everything has fallen off of this one yet in this year. Sometimes they really retain their leaves for a while from year to year. Some difference there. So mid-January, midwinter, this is that first site. I love these gloves. They're so warm. And so there's a couple leaves left, and here's some seed heads. And so some of those seeds are going to fall out here and like land in the snow. And then as that snow melts, they'll be like deposited onto the ground. And that's a pretty good situation for them. The snow was so deep. Those Christmas lights in the snow, when you turn them on, very pretty. Okay, February now, mid-February. So you'll remember in February, late February, is when they started coming up at the way end of late winter. So this is about 3 days before they'll start coming up. So I dig around here and I try to pull some of this up. And you can see the stalks from all the snow, they did finally get plastered down to the ground. And any leaf litter is under there, seed heads. My nails are for Valentine's Day. But it is just a couple days until they start coming up, if you can believe it. I know, you're like, look at all this snow. There's no way. There's no way. Way. Okay, this is late February, different year. That's site 2, partial sun. And so they have fallen over more. The leaves have gotten more crispy now. And so it's funny that sometimes it's all the way until late winter, right before they start coming up, when finally all the old leaves are like, okay, let's give up the ghost. We're done. And that's sort of neat. And I imagine in climates like at the top of Minnesota, maybe they don't hold out this long, some of the leaves. And if you're really further south, maybe some of them stay green all winter. I don't know. And so the next clip is going to be the same day. Yeah. Same day, also site 2, just a different little spot. Yeah, exact same day. I have a number of different Bradbury's Monarda. I like them. And this one, same day, same year, different spot. Like there's no leaves. The stalks are straight up. There's no leaves though. A whole different situation on this side of that particular flower bed. Okay, and so now, late winter, February, 5 days later. This is 5 days later, and this is the first video I showed you. They're coming back up now. So you can see now how we have these old stalks here. There's old leaves and seed heads and all that junk around, but here they are. So 5 days from that last video, here they are coming up again. So they can do a lot in a couple days when it's time for them to come up, right? And you know, the reason I have a few different Monarda bradburiana is there was a couple plants when I was getting started with native plants that felt like they might be safe and easy and like, I'll do these. And Bradbury's Monarda was one of them. I picked that as a safe, I almost don't even know what I mean anymore by safe, but I picked it as a safe, easy, normal looking first native plant to do. And so it kind of holds a special place in my heart. And so that is why I have a few different Bradbury's Monarda around the yard. I like it, and it just reminds me of when I was getting started and I was very unsure of what I was doing and what was okay to do. And and now it's like, you do whatever you want. Less confident then. So something I didn't mention in all my blibber blabbering, the leaves of Monarda bradburiana have a lot of essential oils in them that are antibacterial, antifungal, they have antioxidant properties. But very interestingly, the amount of different essential oils, like which essential oils and the amount of them in the leaves of Bradbury's Monarda and other Monardas from year to year within even the same plant is highly variable. Which means if you're like, oh, I'm going to use the essential oils in these Bradbury Monarda leaves, from year to year and even from one part of the plant to the other, the profile of those essential oils, the makeup, is going to be really different. It's highly variable, which is very unusual. The Monardas in general are very unusual genus. There's a wide variety in what is happening in their leaves, which is interesting. So this is Nicholas Menard's, or Nicoli Menardi, I don't know. He was in Seville, Spain, a physician and a botanist, and this is what Monarda, the genus, was named after. Now, you may be like, Spain, that's not North America. So true, so true. And all the Monardas, they are native to North America, and this guy is from Spain. But sometimes when you name plants and name their genus, you're kind of doing it to pay tribute to someone, whether or not that someone has ever even seen the plant. So this is Nicholas Menard's, Nicoli Menardi, which is where we get our Monarda name from. And so another thing, the Monardas is a very confusing group of plants. So if you just look at the flower of all of them, you can see the similarity in them. But when you start looking at the molecular level, both at the DNA, at the chemical composition of the leaves, at the pollen and nectar ratios, and also like the sugar content within, the variability is humongous and kind of unexpected and weird, I'll even say. I'll use the word weird. And this is really unusual for a genus of plants. Usually they're a little more homogeneous, but the Monardas are all over the place. And if you are into Monardas, you will know that some of them hybridize and make Monarda hybrids naturally, which adds a little bit to the confusion. And on top of that, this particular one, Monarda bradburiana, there's another Monarda species, Monarda russelliana, so like Russell, but Iana on the end, Russelliana. And so it seemed like Monarda bradburiana and Monarda russelliana were different, but it looks like actually it is in fact the same species. And so sometimes if you're looking up old papers or looking up Bradbury's Monarda, you might see that name pop up. and that is referring to the same species, but we've agreed now that it's the same thing. And so I'm just showing you this snippet from this old 1944 paper where this author is talking about the confusion between Monarda russelliana and Monarda bradburiana, and saying in this paper, it gives him a little bit of sadness because he knew Dr. Russell for the russelliana, and it pained him a little bit to be like, Monarda russelliana, though, it's actually the same as bradburiana, so we got to put them together. We can't keep them as two separate species. And I guess I'm also showing you this paper because I appreciate older scientific literature. They're a little bit more, conversational in how they talk in their papers. Nowadays, the language is at, I would say, a higher level. There's a lot more scientific language and specificity, and which is fine. It's a natural progression, but I appreciate in some of these older papers, you can really get the personality of the researchers. But anyways, this is one of the papers where we were sort of agreeing back in 1944 that Monarda russelliana is not really a thing. It's all Monarda bradburiana. And finally, I will say, I forgot to mention this, the seeds and the roots of Monarda bradburiana are unaffected by fire. So I'm not expecting anybody to set fire to their yards on purpose, but it is sort of neat that, like a lot of plants, the roots and the seeds of Monarda bradburiana are totally cool with fire. Okay, so that is our look at Monarda bradburiana. Established patch in every season of the year, a pretty decent choice for a native plant, for a new native plant gardener or somebody who wants a very tame, mound-like look to a native plant for display in their front yard or display in a lovely garden. Plant native, my friends.